Welcome to the Fitness Mindset Podcast. Amanda Micallef here, helping people like you overcome life's setbacks to help you achieve your fitness, career, and life goals. This podcast has been proudly sponsored by my coaching practice, Divine Physiques Coaching, as well as Kyani and the Triangle of Health. To find out more about coaching with myself or more about Kyani and their incredible products, please shoot me an email. Link is in the description below. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode, and I hope you enjoy the content. Guys, this is the Fitness Mindset Podcast. You're joined with yours truly and Mr. Terry Purcell. This is episode number 37. Can't believe I've been sitting in hotel quarantine, pumping out more podcasts than anything else. Terry, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Amanda.
So you're a champion stair climber.
I am, or was, yes.
So tell us.
Not the most common sport, but yes.
Not a common sport at all. So I was fascinated. So obviously your brother Bernie was one of the people that introduced me into the business of Kyani and then introduced me to yourself. We've had a little bit of a chat offline and you've told me a bit about your story, but there's so much more I need to ask you today. And I'm sure everyone else is going to be interested to learn more about you and your story. So why stair climbing?
It was in the early 1990s, dating myself a little bit, and living in Melbourne. And if you know the building, the Melbourne Rialto Tower, they had a race up that every year, and they had one up the Sydney Tower. And a good friend of mine, his brother had won those races and gone off to New York and raced the Empire State Building and won those. So we were at Olympic Park watching a track, event one night, and those guys had just come back from the Rialto from training, and joking around, and we're all joking around, and I said, "Oh, I should have joined you," and they said, "Oh no, there's no way you could hack it." And so, that's sort of an Australian way to challenge someone. So from that, I said, okay, well, I better try this. Not thinking that, of course, I'm going to win the race or beat the guy who's winning the race at Empire State Building. But that's actually how I got into it, was just a challenge at Olympic Park, going to watch athletics.
Right. Okay. So your first climb was in 1993 in Sydney. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. Yes.
And it just all kind of took off from there. So, I mean, how do you train for stair climbing?
So having a building that you have access to is a good thing. If you've got more than 20 floors, that's even better, because a lot of these races, in Australia, they're more like 50 floors, 60. This is before the Eureka Tower was built, right? So this is the 1990s. So the bigger races were the Rialto and Sydney Tower, and those were about sort of 7-minute races. But yeah, if you have a building to access, that's great. Otherwise, hills, more mountains than little hills. But anything that helps you sort of simulate the muscles of climbing, whether it's steep running up hills or riding up hills, or then in stair training.
Do you do any gym work?
A little bit, but I find, when you're a lean athlete, if you do too much weights, some people it's easy to bulk up.
Yeah.
And for me, if I get too much in the gym, I'm trying to look at power to weight ratio. So every extra kilo I'm putting on, that's, yes, it's increasing my strength, but there's sort of a law of diminishing returns, right? I don't need to really bulk up, because then I'm just carrying more weight upstairs. So I don't do a lot of gym work. And so, yeah, I kind of then have the opposite of the chicken legs thing. I have the chicken arms, right? So I have really strong legs and not a huge upper body.
So are you like a marathon runner then in stature?
Maybe carrying a little bit more muscle.
Yeah.
But to sort of the average person, I mean, you know, if you look at those marathon runners, the successful ones, they're just ultra skinny.
Yep,
Right?
very much so.
And so me, for the average person, they'd look at me as skinny, but as soon as I stood next to a Kenyan, you know, marathoner, then I'd look fat, right? So it's all relative.
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. So how many years have you been competing for? Like, I mean, so you started many, many years ago. I was in grade 2 when you started, just to give you some context. So,
I guess I was 20. I was 22. I guess. Yeah.
wow. So how
Um,
long did you, because you stopped and then you came back into it. So what happened? Like, how long were you competing? Why did you stop? And then why did you start again?
oh, I've had multiple ebbs and flows. So started in 1993. Really got into it 94 through to like 99, 2000. Had a life change, moving to the US. You know, retired because I was really at the elite level there and racing internationally. I stepped back at that time because I couldn't continue the training and the travel and racing. So that was around 2000. I retired then. I
Right.
picked it up again. I picked it up again in 2003 and raced for about 8 years in the US, mostly in Chicago, but did a little bit in you know, some of the other major cities like LA and a few St. Louis places like that. A little bit of travel. Retired again in 2011, and that was when I hit the age of 40, and I felt like my body wasn't able to keep up with the training.
Sure.
Um, and and so yeah, and then surprisingly, I got back into it um, in 2017, and
So,
it was Kyani that got me back into it.
yeah, okay. So was it Bernie that introduced you to Kyani?
Yes, it was. Yes, um, and my brother Bernie is not. You know, he's a former footballer, so a different mindset than me, with you know more on the high intensity and competing at the elite level. You know, remember I was competing at international level and then you know national level. You know, Australia and then the US. So it's a little bit different for someone like Bernie to you know go back into football at you know some local team in Gisborne versus me you know trying to embark again at a national level and compete.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I've always been fit and healthy, and um, Bernie kept telling me that you know that Kyani would make me healthy, and I said, well, I'm already healthy, already eat well, and
Yeah.
um, but um, but yeah, once he sort of showed me a couple of, he put me on to one guy who's a personal trainer, um, and then I started researching on the benefits of delaying fatigue, and by delaying fatigue, you improve recovery.
Mm.
If you don't break down the muscles as much. So even if you can have the same athletic output or even better output with less muscle breakdown, your recovery is a lot quicker. And so I saw some YouTube videos that Bernie had pointed me to, where you know some unique athletes were. There was a guy who was a free diver, which I'd never heard before. It's probably less common than stair climbing, where this guy, it's a sport where they don't have any scuba gear, just flippers, and they dive down as deep as they can, and then they have to come back without oxygen.
Wow.
That's a sport. And so I saw this YouTube video about this guy who did that, and after he tried Kyani, he got further because he previously you know tried to get to, I don't remember what it was, 100 meters or 100 feet. It's ridiculously deep, regardless. He got to a certain point and then would black out on his way back to the surface. And with Kyani, he was able to, he recovered better and he was able to go further in his dives. And he talked about the reduced lactic acid buildup. And I just, that resonated with me because that's exactly, you know, I'm climbing a 100 floor building
Yep.
and maybe it's a 10-minute race. And 3 minutes in, the lactic acid starts to build up in your legs. And then it's about um, survival and distracting yourself from the inevitable, right? And so for me, I mean, you know how everybody, the cliche about giving 110%, that's all ridiculous. But the fact that once people see the finish line in a running race, for example, they can suddenly sprint, right? And so, you know, can you push through the pain, sprint again? And you typically can if you see the finish line. Right? The earlier in the race that you are, that the lactic acid hits you, that's when people stop and walk because it's too far to go. And so in stair climbing, you're 3 minutes in and your legs are screaming and your lungs are screaming and you're like, I've got another 7 minutes to go here.
Yeah.
And so that was always the mental battle. And so when I watched that video and this guy's talking about delaying the lactic acid buildup, okay, now I'm interested, Bernie. Okay, I'll try this.
So when you're climbing stairs, like, because I know to walk upstairs, I'm fit, but it hurts. It hurts the fittest of people to walk upstairs. So are you going up once up a building or twice?
Yeah, just once up a building. So
yeah,
you take Sears Tower or Willis Tower in Chicago. That's 103 floors. Takes about 13 minutes to climb non-stop, once up those 103 floors.
Crazy. And how many competitors would enter into a race? Like, are you all like punching on stairs as you're going up? Like, are you not nudging each other out of the way? Like, how does it work?
No, there's upwards of about 2,000 or more that go in the races in the US. But what they do is they have the chip timing and they send people off every 10 seconds.
Sure.
And typically they rank people, basically the top 10, the top 20 or the top 50 are ranked so that the more elite climbers have a clear stairwell. Because it's not impossible to pass someone, but you don't want to turn a corner and suddenly, run into, 5 people who are standing on the stairwell having a chat and just going at a snail's pace, right? So
yeah,
the people that are just there to finish the event, they're typically, they prioritize the elite competitors or the competitive climbers first, so that they have a clear stairwell. The mass start events where everybody's starting together are less common, but it's a lot cooler from the I was going to say from a spectator perspective, but basically in stair climbing, you watch people enter the building and then you go to the top and watch them come out. So it's not much of a spectator sport, but Empire State Building is one where they'll have 30 or 40 climbers go at once. You start in the lobby. There's a 20-meter sprint to a doorway, and then it's just a mad scramble. So that's pretty amazing because you know what place you're in effectively. You know if you're winning, you know if you're in second, third, if you're in 20th, you might not know if you're 20th or 30th. But the events where it's one person every 10 seconds, it's a time trial, and you don't really know, races where I've won the race by 1 second, and someone that started 10 seconds behind me. And, so you can't really,
know if you're going to win,
really coast.
Because, well, you wouldn't know if you're going to win or not, because it's unlike a 100-meter race where you're all going together. Because you're all going separately, it's whoever gets there to the top the quickest. So you'd have to wait. Would you have to wait until everyone finishes and then you'd know where everyone places?
Yes. Yeah. Although, again, it's like you said, it's not a common sport. So, there's a small number of elite climbers. It's rare that someone comes new into the sport and suddenly wins out of the blue.
Yep.
So typically within 5 minutes of the elites finishing, we all sort of know who's likely to have won, and the race organisers typically give you the, sort of the update then yeah, you could be waiting 4 or 5 hours until everyone has finished. It did happen to me once that 3 hours later, someone came along and it was some elite triathlete in the US that ended up beating me by like 4 or 5 seconds.
Oh, wow. How did that feel?
It wasn't as bad as it sounds because it was in my Kyani comeback, and I didn't actually expect at the age of, I'm trying to think what I was then, 46 or 47, to win my first race back. This was the second tallest building in Chicago. It's a race I had at that point won 9 times out of 9 starts. So, so it was. I was surprised.
Is this after you started taking Kyani?
So I came back to the race in 2017.
Yep.
I had last raced it in 2011.
Yep.
And at that point, I had won the race 9 times. I'd raced it 9 times and won it 9 times.
Yep.
So 6 years out, I came back after taking Kyani for about a month. And I won the elite section. Again, this is me at 47 years old, I think. 47 years old. I won the elite section overall, but then 3 hours later, someone had come along in just the regular field and beat me by 5. So I was actually, I didn't walk into the race at 47 years old thinking I was going to win it. So
sure,
I did come back the year after and win, take another like 15 seconds off that time. But then that same guy didn't show up. So
gotcha. So how many races are you likely to have a year normally?
The problem is it gets expensive. When I was just doing the Chicago races, I could maybe get 5 or 6 races just going to Chicago because I'm 3 hours drive from Chicago.
Yep.
So I could hit 5 races at sort of low cost. But 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, I decided to. I started the year and said I'm going to try and rank #1 overall in the US at age 48. And so I flew to Dallas, I flew to LA, Seattle, New York, Charlotte, North Carolina, and then also did the Chicago races. So I probably knocked out about 8 to 10 races, but it got expensive to do it. And I won over half of them and ended up finish the year in the Tower Running USA rankings #1.
So do you get prize money for the wins? Like, what do you win?
No, in the US there's no prize money. It's even though there's thousands of people that race these races, they are more charity events. So you really just bragging rights. Throughout Europe, the races often carry prize money. There is more of a circuit.
Yep.
It's more competitive outside of the US. Okay,
sure. All right, interesting. So when you're not racing, so are you still racing or are you done now?
Well, COVID, has thrown a spanner in the works. But yeah, after ranking #1 in the US a couple of years ago, I then sort of wondered, well, what? Because you sort of run out of goals. So I stepped out of stair climbing and have just tried to keep fit and set other goals. Right now I'm having a lot of fun cycling. I've got a road bike, a mountain bike, and a gravel bike.
Yep.
Gravel bike riding is kind of the new cool thing in the US. So yeah, I've just focused on doing that, and I'm just enjoying it rather than, I sort of thought as I would approach 50, I could, get back into stairs and not have people expect me to win. But because I came back and started winning, the expectations, it's not as easy. Well, I think most people would understand it's not as easy as it sounds when you're over 45 to be competing with people that are 30 years old and still competing at that level. So, so yeah, I was doing it over a 25-year time span, and you know, I've won most of the races in the US. I've won a world championship. I won races in Australia. I've competed in maybe 5 or 6 different countries. So I've kind of run out of stair climbing goals at this point.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, again, done a little bit more reading on, just before we've caught up here to sort of look at your accolades as well, because we only touched on it very briefly offline yesterday. So how many races in total, and how many of them have you actually won? Do you know how many races, like from the top of your head?
No, I don't. I often don't even look at the results. I let other people tell me how I did. I would have to say, well, I know in Chicago alone, I've had about 25 races, and I think I won 22 of them out of the 25 I did. And a lot of my races have been in Chicago. I mean, in Australia, there was only 2 races a year, right? So you didn't get a lot of racing. Over here, there's maybe 75 races a year, but you have to go all over the country. So I'd want to say I've raced about 50 to 60 races, and maybe won over half of them, maybe 35 of the races, and maybe finished off the podium maybe 5 or 7 times. So if I wasn't winning, it's typically second or third. So yeah, something around that.
Cool. So what do you do when you're not training? Like, I mean, are you working full time, or what were you doing between all of that over the years? What do you do for a living outside?
Yeah, so I have a somewhat high pressure, stress job. Like if you were to Google my name and IBM, I'm the technical architect for database search on IBM mainframe computers. So I'm their world leading authority on database search for IBM mainframes. So I lead that team in California.
Wow.
And now we're doing a lot in machine learning and artificial intelligence. So that obviously has always been my main gig, and stair climbing was always sort of a side passion.
So have you been at IBM for a while now? Like, I've just literally
18 years.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. IBM Master Inventor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have, I don't know, 35 or 40 US patents for database search.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
so are you working from home right now?
Yes, this is me in my home office.
Yeah. And are you likely to go back to the office anytime soon?
No. And that's okay. That's okay.
Fair enough. It looks like that's going to be the way of the future for a lot of people. Well, I want to talk about some of the Kyani research soon, but where did you grow up? Are you Geelong boys?
I am. We are Geelong boys, yes.
And
yeah.
Is there more brothers, or is it just you and Bernie? What's the go?
I'm the youngest. Bernie's the oldest, and there's a middle one, Kevin.
Right. And so why did you fly the coop? Like, what made you go to America?
I was working in Melbourne. I was actually at Telstra at the time, working in their computing department. And I mean, I think we all know in Australia that it's exciting to leave. There's opportunities elsewhere. And for me in the IT or computing field, and the US is sort of a mecca, right? So it was in the year 2000 that I had met these consultants who were here that were in Melbourne for a conference, and they then recruited me to join their company in the year 2000, and that's when I moved, and so I mean, if someone offers you a job in another country and offers to sponsor you for the visa and so forth, then
sure.
It's difficult to pass up, and that's exactly what I did. And I worked for that. It was just a small consulting company, and I worked for them for 2 years, and then I got recruited by IBM. So I've been with IBM now 18 years. I've been in the US 20 years.
And do you love the lifestyle there? So whereabouts
I
in
do.
are you?
Yeah. I'm actually in Springfield, Illinois, which is the capital. I mean, Chicago is the biggest city in Illinois. Springfield is the capital. The home of Abraham Lincoln and so forth. But yeah,
Yeah.
and I came here because the company that first recruited me here, they had an office in Chicago and an office in Springfield.
Yeah.
And Chicago, I don't know, has something like 8 million people. And coming from Australia, I couldn't sort of fathom living in a city of 8 million people. So I settled in Springfield. And yeah, it's a city of 100,000 people. But America does a really good job in, at least outside of the major cities, of spreading you out. When I go to park my car in a car park at the supermarket, I don't bang the door of the other car like you do everywhere in Australia.
Oh, okay. So the car park's bigger over there, are
Oh,
they?
absolutely, because everyone drives those pickup trucks, and
I was going to say, they've got the big trucks over there. They're fantastic. I love those trucks. I want something like that.
So there's a lot more space to move, and the convenience. I mean, the convenience is here. I mean, you drive through to go to the bank, right? And you talk to the teller via a microphone, and you put something in a chute.
Oh, really? They drive through banks over there. That's crazy.
Drive through banks, drive through chemists. I mean, the conveniences here are fabulous. You don't have to get out of your car, but I mean, you can use those conveniences to become fatter, or you can use those as as not wasting your time on sort of just mundane tasks, and then you've got more time to do something productive. But I'm not saying that every American uses their spare time to. Most of them just maybe sit on the couch or generalization.
Well, that obviously that's why a lot of Americans might be overweight, because there's so much convenience over there. So
yeah, many things are too easy, which again does
the opposite.
lead to laziness, I guess. Yeah,
100%. Have you done many trips back to the motherland since?
Yes. Yeah, we have a conference. IBM has a conference there once a year, and I typically get a free trip on IBM, but I often will go back another time. But yeah, since COVID, you can't travel. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's like you. I'd be quarantining. I do still have I have a US and an Australian passport. I'm a citizen of both. So I guess I would be allowed into Australia right now, but I'd have to pony up, what is it, $3,000 and quarantine in Sydney or something like that.
Oh yeah, just wait.
Yeah. So I'll wait till they lift the travel bans and the quarantines, and then I'll come back.
That was gonna be my next question. So are you planning to come back sort of once borders are open for a visit? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's chat about some of the science now with Kyani. Now, it's my understanding you've done some research. What sort of research have you done, and what has really impressed you the most about the product?
Yeah, so I research. You might be able to tell. I intently focus on the things that are of interest to me and that I think will benefit me, and then I go full pelt at them. And the one area that I really did a lot of research in is the nitric oxide focus of the Kyani product. Look, in the 1990s, I was sponsored by a large nutrition company there in Australia, and I took everything they had. All the protein powders, all branched chain amino acids, the creatine, the IGF-1, all of every top of the line supplement, because I was getting the stuff for free.
Yep.
I don't really know if any of that stuff worked. And that's, I think, the biggest problem that most people face is they don't really know if products are working. They take them because they think they have to, or they believe the marketing claims. And so I typically, base what I try based upon people I trust or some evidence that it could benefit me. And then I'll trial it. If I get a benefit, then I research it to try and understand why. And the nitric oxide, long story short, and I'll get back to more of the science, but long story short, I feel like Kyani, more so than any company I've seen, has really focused on nitric oxide production and different delivery mechanisms and different pathways to the nitric oxide, nitric oxide production. So here's how Bernie hooked me on Kyani. I said to you, I watched that YouTube video of that guy who was a deep sea free diver, and that piqued my interest. And this was, I don't even know what day it was. Whatever night it was, I'm at Bernie's, having a glass of wine with him, and he convinced me to watch this YouTube video. I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning the next day to fly back to the US, drive to Tullamarine, Melbourne Airport. And I do a bit of travel work. So I have some super high intensity short workouts that I'll do when I'm crunched for time and I'm stuck in a hotel room.
Yep.
And one of them is a 10-minute workout that has a lot of burpees in it, right? So imagine sort of a 10-minute workout that has predominantly burpees.
I've been doing something similar in the hotel myself with bands and stuff. So yeah, burpees.
Yeah, and I'm not carrying around any extra. So yeah, you exactly get it. So Bernie gave me this I got one here, the little Nitro Extreme bottle, and he told me how to take it. So 4 o'clock in the morning, I get up, no warm up or anything like that, because I don't warm up, I don't stretch. That's odd, but I don't. I took my drops of the Nitro Extreme, and then I went about my 10-minute workout. It's very similar to a stair climb, in that 2 to 3 minutes in of doing burpees, your legs start to scream and you're just sort of surviving through it.
Yeah.
When I took this Nitro Extreme, I went through the whole 10 minutes, and I set one of my better results, the number I did in that amount of time, and no lactic acid buildup.
And that was the first time you'd taken it?
Yep.
Yep, that's amazing. So now you've been taking the products. How long have you been taking the products for now? How many years?
It's got to be 3 years. 3 years, I think. It all blurs together. I think maybe 3.5 years.
And are you taking all 3 products?
Oh, all 3 in the US. We have about 8 to 10 products, and I pretty much take all.
Take all of them. So what else in Kyani do you take?
So you don't have the Fit 20, but it's in New Zealand, but you don't have it in.
Yeah, we're still waiting to get that approved. So I've ordered some in along with the Core 140, so the meal replacement, and I also want to take the HL5. Yeah, how do you like the Core 140?
I actually haven't tried it, because I'm not a fan of chocolate, and it's chocolate flavored. So, but that's just a personal thing. So, but I absolutely love the Fit 20 protein powder, and I've dropped all other protein powder and just used that.
So Fit 20, tell us a bit more about the Fit 20.
Well, so it's a combination of whey and collagen protein.
Yep.
And I actually don't know whether that's where the real value comes that it delivers. I've actually wondered whether it's the nitric oxide boosters in there, which is L-citrulline. So this is where it gets to the science about it, because this goes to my comment about the marketing around protein powders, for example. How do you pick between this product that says it's 100% whey protein versus the one next to it that's 100% whey protein, right? What's the difference? They're both 100% whey protein.
Yeah.
And so from a differentiation standpoint, to me, a lot of the protein powders are they're the same. And you have to sort of try them to, but what to me sets Fit 20 apart is that they also include, as I mentioned, L-citrulline, which helps in increasing your nitric oxide production on a more consistent level. So,
right.
So what I learned about nitric oxide is, it's a vasodilator. It improves blood flow. Sort of, you think of the garden hose that's really, the stiff garden hose versus the flexible garden hose, right? If you turn the tap on more, the flexible garden hose doesn't expand. Sorry, the flexible garden hose does expand, and more water gets through, right? More, but the garden hose that is the stiff garden hose, you turn the tap up, and it just increases the blood pressure, but you can't get any more through, right? Because you're restricted. So nitric oxide sort of has that relaxing effect of the blood vessels. So you get more blood and more oxygen to the muscles, and you also increase the rate of waste removal, so lactic acid buildup. So you sort of have a bigger pipe for the blood to flow through and to the waste to come back. And what I've proven for myself is the other thing is, remember, I'm trying to do a 10-minute stair climb. And if you think about peak energy production, people that are taking, ATP supplements, creatine, it's all about, talks about how the energy production cycle is very short. Right? Well, to me, timing the delivery of nutrients, that type of scenario, is really difficult with digestion, right? How do I know exactly when it's going to release into my bloodstream? When do I drink this or eat this before the race? And what I had found with the Nitro Extreme is it's absorbed under the tongue. So I can never say that, sublingual absorption.
Yeah.
So you leave it under the tongue and it absorbs into the bloodstream relatively quickly. And I've proven to myself I can see the benefit within about 2 minutes. Right? So, but you can't do that with digestion, right? You can't eat something or drink something and have it digest in your stomach. And the other thing is, I don't want all this liquid or food sloshing around in my stomach, hoping the energy gets to the right place. So immediate energy production and reduced lactic acid buildup, this is my go-to.
Sure.
Right? But then what I've also found from nitric oxide production is that as I sort of build up my nitric oxide production capabilities, I have more energy throughout the day. I don't have the peaks and the spikes in energy and the drops. I need less sleep. I recover quicker. It's the daily activities too, because even if you have, most of us have full-time jobs or part-time jobs and trying to do sport or exercise as part-time, right? So you have to think, you can't be going to the gym and then having to nap for the rest of the day, right? Because you're recovering. So there are so many other ways to benefit or produce nitric oxide. And another one is citrulline. And that's something that they've put in the Fit 20. And I've found that I do notice a better recovery, again, from the increased blood flow, and also more sustained energy from that. It also, look, if you think back to weightlifters, bodybuilders, they've known about L-arginine for years, right? They've always been taking that supplement. But what my research has indicated, and Kyani doesn't have an L-arginine-based supplement, which is interesting.
Yeah.
What I've found is that there are more effective ways to produce nitric oxide. L-arginine is one of the least effective. So there are beetroot products out there, powders that are common in the US. Again, research shows that they're better than the L-arginine. And I understand L-arginine provides so many other functions in the body, so not all of it that you ingest is actually used for nitric oxide production.
So with the beetroot juice, because that was something I used to like juicing up probably about a year or so ago. I didn't do it sort of consistently. I'd do it maybe over a week at a time. And literally just got canned beetroots with the juice, blended that up with ice. Does that also help with nitric oxide production?
Yes, it does. But what look, I've seen there's a lot of products in the US that are, it's a concentrated powder, right? So they're selling it in powder form and you mix it up as a drink. I believe it's very cheap, right? And you look at the price of it, it's very cheap because it's just ground up beetroot.
Yeah.
But I have not really had any success with it.
Yeah.
And I've got some friends, elite stair climbers, that I've introduced to Kyani, and they've seen a benefit from the drops, but again, not from the beet products. But there are people out there that say they have seen a benefit. So but most of my friends who've tried it, it's not proven to be effective.
Yeah, I think from what I know, the research out there is still incomplete around beetroot juice and its effectiveness to reduce lactic acid. So, I can speak from experience with taking the product myself. The ability to just push through, I've seen a difference in, because when I train, I do in 1 week, I can break up my training with 2 strength training sessions, 2 bodybuilding sessions, and then a HIIT session. So tapping into different energy systems throughout the week and just seeing the difference in my ability to recover. And it's only recently that I pulled up sore last week because I switched completely to body weight only workouts. And obviously HIIT style training, it does really hit the body pretty hard if you haven't done it for a while. But before that, I mean, I was, lifting pretty decent weights on dumbbells at home training and still really not pulling up that sore at all. So it's huge difference with the products themselves from an energy perspective. You can have a bad night's sleep and still feel that the pick-me-up that you get from the nitric oxide first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Having it on an empty stomach is, it's quite safe because obviously it's all natural. And just how sharp you feel throughout the day. Like right now I'm sitting here and I'm stuck inside for most of the time. I'm lucky if I get like half an hour break outside a day and still energy-wise, still peaking. So it's great. I personally think the products have been a game changer, big game changer.
Yeah, I would agree. Like for me, I'm about to turn 50. I feel like when I was introduced to these 3.5 years ago, from a performance and recovery standpoint, it rolled back the clock for me 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
I was able to, in stair climbing, I'm doing 15 minutes of high intensity training, and then you're done, right? So, but I could do, when I was 35 years old, I could do a stair workout in the morning, and then in the afternoon, go for a tempo run or something that was relatively high intensity. And when I hit 40, I couldn't do that. I was taking an extra day or 2 to recover, and that's when I realized I couldn't do this anymore.
Yeah.
When I was introduced to the Kyani, as I mentioned, the nitric oxide, under the tongue, I saw that immediate benefit in the reduced lactic acid buildup, but it wasn't sort of more for like 3 to 4 weeks that I saw the long-term benefit of the consistency in energy and recovery. Because I mean, you're a personal trainer, you would obviously know this, that it's sort of a compounding effect, that if you recover quicker, you can train again at your regular schedule, and then you can keep building and building. But if you never recover, you just keep breaking down.
Yeah.
Right? And so, the way to continually build your fitness, your strength, is to be able to consistently, consistently build upon the prior, time periods of whatever workout schedule you have. So, again, if you can't recover, you can't you can't go to the next level. And that to me was the game changer, long-term, recovery and consistency in energy. Because I would suggest you've got to try the Fit 20, because that to me, from a recovery and long-term energy production for nitric oxide, was the next game changer for me after the nitro drop.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that to come. I'm excited to try that now. So I've moved from Melbourne to Queensland, and so I'm literally going to be walking distance to the beach. So I want to be pretty shredded as well now. So I'm going to try back a bit. I mean, I'm pretty lean at the moment, but I haven't really taken protein shakes for, I can't even tell you. It's been over a year, I reckon, since I've had protein shakes. But I've heard only really good things about the Fit 20. And I'm not a huge proponent when it comes to just too many supplements. But Kyani's really, it's worked wonders, like I said. So there's a lot of the bodybuilding supplements that they're under research, they're not that effective, and they're much of a muchness. Whereas
exactly.
They felt the benefits almost instantly with Kyani. And I think I'll be on it forever, personally. So
yeah, me too. I've replaced every other supplement that I had with just the Kyani line.
Yeah.
And because again, the delivery mechanism for the drops, I don't see any other company doing that sublingual absorption, under the tongue, and there is research because that's the other thing too. Like I said earlier, companies can make claims, but you want to try it out for yourself. Then if you get a benefit, then you turn around and say, well, is this the placebo effect or is it real? And then when you look at the research, we talked about the beet powder and how it's not necessarily effective. Well, the Kyani drops are based upon noni, the noni berry, I guess, and there's research to show cardiovascular benefits of noni, and so a lot of the research that I find is either from the British Medical Journal or the National Institute of Health in the US, or the other one it's called in the US is PubMed, public medicine. So those, you'll find research papers that are then peer reviewed, and so that's where I find a lot of the research that it's unrelated to Kyani, but the research is independent.
Yeah, so it's about the ingredients themselves.
Yes.
And maybe we can plug some of those below. So we'll have a chat about that later. Send me some links. I'll plug them below, and then others can do their research about. So we can look at things like the noni berry extract. Is there any other sort of white papers that you'd be keen to share that others could read or should read about the product?
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look, because I really did a lot of research a few years ago, and now, because I've just been enjoying the benefits myself, I haven't gone back and revisited the research. But at the time, I had found some good articles, and yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's about the ingredients and research around those ingredients, and then the question is the company that's basing their products off that research, are their products actually effective, or are they bogus, right? And so to me, the research is sound, and what I found is the Kyani products then actually, my results match that research. So that means that it's not just the marketing firms,
Yeah,
which you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. All right, brilliant. All right, cool. That sounds brilliant. And I think I'm going to, because I've got some science papers myself, and I think when I've got some time, I'm going to go back and read through the science all over again, because I find it really interesting. Even though it's a bit dry to read, it is interesting to kind of see the clinical trials that they run and what have you to get the outcomes. What would you suggest to, I guess, any athlete wanting to potentially give Kyani a go, or what's the best piece of advice you could give to someone? I kind of like to end podcasts with a little bit of motivation or inspiration. So what would be your take?
Yeah, so my take is try out one of the products and prove to yourself that it does or doesn't work. And to me, the simplest, most cost-effective one to try is this Nitro Extreme.
Yeah.
And basically, I would suggest get a couple of bottles. But look, I don't know how much it is in the US and in Australia. The 8 of these little bottles in the US runs you about $80 to $90 for 8 of them US dollars, right? So I'm assuming it's, $10 to $15 a bottle, right? And you can maybe get a week out of it if you're using it a lot. But yeah, I would suggest either giving a friend a sample of one of these, and then first thing in the morning, try and get 20 drops under your tongue, hold it there for 20 seconds, then swish it around, swallow it. So do that for a week, but also immediately before some type of intense activity, whether it's a gym workout, whether it's some sort of high intensity cycling, running, rowing, whatever it is, you're going to see more short-term noticeable benefit if you've got some high intensity activity. So again, a couple of minutes before, put it in your gym bag or whatever, 20 drops, 20 seconds under your tongue, swish it around to help saliva production, and then swallow it. So yeah, every morning you've got to hold it under the tongue to let it sort of the saliva production have it be absorbed. But yeah, try it for a week and with some high intensity exercise. If you don't have a lot of high intensity exercise, then it might take you 2, 3, 4 weeks to really notice. But try this first. This is the one that I found that and just as a bit of a plug, there are for men and women that are interested, there are also men's health benefits to it.
As well as women. I spoke about this in the podcast. So it increases blood flow in through the sexual organs of both male and female. So as a positive side effect of taking Nitro Extreme, it does increase your libido. So which I think is a massive win for both sexes, both genders, indeed.
Yeah, the only problem I have is that the Nitro Extreme, if I take it in the afternoon or evening, it does impact my sleep. I'll be midnight and I'm still just, why am I still awake?
Yep.
They have a lighter version, the FX.
Oh,
they have the Extreme in the. This is my go-to in the afternoon if I need a boost, or in the evening if I want a boost for other purposes, including if you're a person that enjoys adult beverages. I like red wine. Having this before and after, I found increases the absorption of alcohol and also gets it out of your system quicker. So you get a buzz. You'll get a buzz sooner, and you'll less likely to have a hangover because it gets it out of your system quicker. So it's all about blood flow, but for that's like you said, for other reasons too. But I found that it also works for that as well. And again, I use the FX for that because it's not as strong and then doesn't impact my sleep. So depending on what your preference is it sexual performance and drinking alcohol or athletic performance? It depends. And for me, it's both.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you liked the content, please make sure you support the show by giving a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and turn on your post notifications so you are the first to know when a new show is released. If you are interested in having me present a speaking presentation in your enterprise, sporting club, or event, please send me an email. Link is below in the description. Thanks once again. You've been amazing to last this long, and join me again on the next episode.